We have been long overdue for the Five Nights at Freddy's movie adaptation. Not just since it was announced, but since the series first entered the world, the potential for a horror movie based on the premise of children's entertainment mascots turning murderous at night, and let alone the infinitely expanding lore of the franchise, just begged to be put into movie format. Thankfully, it wouldn't take very long to see this idea realised, as the Banana Splits movie would release in... Wait, no, sorry, that's the wrong thing. Willy's Wonder. The amount of anticipation, or perhaps even worry, surrounding the actual Five Nights at Freddy's movie has been, honestly, completely understandable. For a long time, we knew close to nothing about this thing, and a lot of what we did find out quickly became outdated. But in spite of that, this movie is coming out. For a while it sure didn't feel like it ever would, but we can finally stop panicking, and stop spamming Jason Blum's Twitter for FNaF, for God's sake. So I'd like to take a look back at everything we've been told about the FNaF movie until now, for the sake of just a trip down memory lane, and also so that we know what this movie could have been and what it could still be. On the 7th of April 2015, it was announced that the rights to Five Nights at Freddy's were picked up by Warner Brothers. The producers at the time stated that they were looking forward to working with Scott to make an insane, terrifying, and weirdly adorable movie. Later in July 2015, it was announced that Gil Kenan, known mostly for directing the movie Monster House, was set to direct the film. News on the movie was dormant for months following this, ignoring Gil Kenan's tweets that seemed to tease fans about the movie, giving vague responses to comments about the film and posting what appeared to be behind-the-scenes images of animatronics. Nothing much was known about what the movie was supposed to look like at this time, although the director was adamant about using real animatronics with practical effects and minimal CGI. He also claimed that he was making this film for all the FNaF fans, not just the kids. On the 31st of January 2017, Scott Cawthon made a Steam post titled Movie News, in which he revealed that the movie was now back at square one. And unfortunately, that was not the last time something like this would happen. Interestingly, Scott mentioned that he was going to be more involved with the movie from day one this time, implying that he didn't have much of a presence in the early stages of development. According to Scott, the movie was met with several delays and roadblocks, attributing this to problems with the movie industry as a whole, but he still wants the movie to be something that he's excited for the fanbase to see. So after nearly 2 years of waiting, progress on the FNaF movie was completely reset. It's now March 2017. Fans aren't expecting news of any kind for a while, since work pretty much had to start all over again. Except suddenly, completely out of left field, Scott Cawthon's first and only tweet. An image of one of those movie set chairs with the name Freddy on it, in front of a screen displaying the logo for Blumhouse Productions, which is a studio known for their relatively small budget but incredibly successful films, and especially for their horror films. This collaboration was confirmed by CEO of Blumhouse, Jason Blum, during an interview.
Well, I'm excited about Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't know if kind of horror, but I'm really excited about that. I've been working with Scott Cawthon on trying to turn that into a movie. I'm really pleased about that.
Thus marked the end of the Warner Brothers era of FNaF movie pre-production, and in June 2017, Gil Kenan confirmed that he would no longer be directing the movie. In January 2018, Scott revealed that music for an eventual trailer had already been created by Leon Riskin, the composer for a lot of music in the original FNaF games, as well as saying that, although it's out of his control, he would be willing to direct the trailer for the movie when the time comes. February 2018, the new director for the film is announced to be Chris Columbus, known for the first 2 Home Alone and first 2 Harry Potter movies. During the interview with Dorco in August of 2018, Scott spoke more about the struggles with coming up with a script for the movie. He shares his ideas of what the movie should be.
People who go to see the movie aren't going to want to see a retelling of the books. They're going to want to see the first game. They're going to want to see a retelling of the story that got them interested in the first place. So with the 8 games, 5 books, just thousands over thousands of videos and fan theories and this and that and timelines and all this stuff, the people I work with so far have either looked at it all, been completely overwhelmed, and decided to do something completely original, just start completely over, and obviously that doesn't work. And a couple other guys have tried to incorporate everything into some, master script that includes every aspect, every character, every idea, and obviously that doesn't work either, because then it's just a dumpster fire. It's just too much to squeeze into 2 hours. You can't do it. You cannot do it.
Which tells us that the movie is likely to be a retelling of the first game, not an adaptation of any of the books, not a recap of the lore, and not an original story. This interview also revealed Scott's interest in potentially making a trilogy of movies based on the first 3 games respectively.
Ideally, if the first movie does really well, I think it would work great as a trilogy. Five Nights at Freddy's 1, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and Five Nights at Freddy's 3, based on the first 3 games. I'm not going to go into the first movie with that mentality, though. You know, I've seen too many good movies get kind of sidetracked by trying to set up future movies. I'm not going to fall into that.
Soon after the interview, Scott would create a thread on Steam in which he disclosed that the first draft of the movie was complete, though it would still need a little fine-tuning. He also brought up that the idea of writing drafts for a second and third movie had been rolling around in his head, just to make sure that there's a solid story to be told, even if they never get made. At this point, Scott seemed fairly confident about the production of the movie, enough to the point that he included the status of the second and third movie in this post, despite neither being started on in any way at the time. Later in August, Jason Blum tweeted that an estimated release year for the film was 2020. In October of 2018, Jason commented on a new script for the film that Scott was set to present to them.
There's a new script, which I haven't read yet, but Scott is about to give us a new script, and it's moving full steam ahead. There's not a day that goes by that we don't talk about some aspect of Five Nights at Freddy's, and hopefully we'll make the movie pretty soon, I would say.
He also joked that there could be a role for Jamie Lee Curtis in the film, as she's a big fan of the Five Nights at Freddy's series.
You know Jamie Lee Curtis is a big fan.
Huge fan. I just sent Scott this big thing that Jamie Lee signed, and Jamie and I did a Q&A afterwards, and unfortunately he wasn't there, but she talked a lot about her love of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Do you think there could be a role for her in that movie?
I hope so. I'm thinking about it. I had the same thought that you did.
Scott would update his Steam thread in November of 2018, announcing that the script they had previously settled with would be scrapped and the film would be further delayed. One interesting detail that came from this announcement is that Scott intends for the movie to be set within the universe of FNaF 1 to 3. The games after Five Nights at Freddy's 3 will not exist in the movie. Like it or hate it, I felt that this was the best portion of the storyline to really focus on. The thread was updated again in August of 2019 to say that the FNaF movie was expected to arrive in 2021. The project was briefly mentioned in a few other updates to the thread, but these mostly provided very vague information to the effect of "we have a script" or "progress is being made." An update drought followed this, close to a year with no news to speak of. For a while it was thought to be silently cancelled. But in June of 2020, Jason Blum would state in an interview that work on the movie was super active.
It's super active. So I really feel like we have a very good shot at getting to see a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I feel like it's really moving forward. It's not stalled or anything else. It might seem that way because we haven't done any announcements about it, but it's not stalled.
Arguably the biggest piece of news to come out for this movie so far was in November 2020, when Scott made a Reddit post that went in depth into several screenplays for the movie that had come and gone over the years, their basic premise, and why they were rejected. The F screenplay for being too outlandish, the Plushies Take Manhattan screenplay because the world simply wasn't ready for it yet, the Random Charlie screenplay for being too loosely based on the games and books, the Silver Eye screenplay because Scott decided the movie should adapt the games rather than the books, the Pawn Shop screenplay for not being scary enough, the Cassidy screenplay for being too bloated with lore, the Misfit Kid screenplay for having a plot that was too forced and contrived to leave any kind of impact, the Ghost Tracker screenplay for not focusing enough on the characters from the games, the Insane screenplay for being too all over the place in the elements from the games that it featured, as well as being too action-y rather than horror-y. And at the end of the post, the Mike screenplay was name-dropped, a screenplay that Scott shared basically nothing about, but he did say that this was the screenplay they were going with. He was so confident on this that he also stated filming was going to start in spring of 2021. Filming didn't start in spring of 2021. Once again, months passed with no news on the movie, until October 2021, when Jason Blum revealed that they were still having trouble coming up with a script that was satisfying to Scott. That's weird. I could have sworn he just said last year. Additionally, Chris Columbus was said to no longer be attached to the movie. From then until very recently, most of the updates we've gotten have been from Jason Blum's Twitter and the occasional interview where he assures fans that the movie is still coming.
On Freddy's, we are dangerously close, I will say that.
In response to a comment under one such tweet in May 2022, Blum did confirm that the film will apparently be as horrific as FNaF is intended to be, whatever that means. And immediately after FNaF's 8th anniversary, the 8th of August 2022, Jason Blum, totally out of the blue, posted an image on his Twitter of some behind-the-scenes work on an animatronic suit, specifically a Freddy Fazbear suit, confirming that the movie is still going to use practical effects for the animatronic characters. Around this time, Jason also stated in an article that he's excited about Five Nights at Freddy's in response to a question regarding Blumhouse films coming out next year, i.e. 2023. But as has been kind of a pattern with Blum's comments about this movie, this statement was a little vague, and despite him apparently advocating twice now for the movie possibly releasing in 2023,
So that could certainly be in 23.
many still debate over whether or not Blum means that the film is going to go into production that year, or if it will actually release that year. In October, Jason Blum probably felt threatened by the trailer for the Mario movie coming out soon, because he unexpectedly decided to go onto Twitter and remind the internet of the real video game movie of 2023, by revealing what was probably every bit of information he had on the state of the movie. This being that the animatronics for the movie were being made by Jim Henson's Creature Shop, which was already made known by his last tweet on the movie, as well as when the film was in the hands of Warner Brothers, as Gil Keenan hinted at the fact on Twitter, as well as their new director, Emma Tammy, who has previously directed episodes of Into the Dark and the movie The Wind most notably. Finally, Jason disclosed that filming would start in February of 2023. Further details on the state of the movie came out in an article that followed Jason's tweet, featuring quotes from Jason, Scott, and Emma, revealing that Tammy is someone that Scott trusts and feels has a good understanding of the franchise, and that the movie will be her first writing credit, being written by Tammy, Cawthon, and Seth Cuddeback, who has written and directed a number of short films, such as Kelp and Mateo. The most recent news we have comes from Production Weekly, which reveals more names attached to the project, and also divulges a pretty vague synopsis, as well as a filming day and location of February 1st in New Orleans, Louisiana. Bad Cupcake also appears to now be the film's working title, which means it's the title that would appear in less public places, like casting calls, and a company by the name of Bad Cupcake Productions is now involved with the film. And that is where information on this movie stops as of now. Official, verifiable information. I'm not going to talk about the character details leak. A lot of people treat it as fact, but the things that it claims haven't officially been confirmed. If that leak turns out to be real, I will literally drink water. Okay, so I had this video planned out for months. I recorded the voiceover a few weeks ago, and just as I was editing it all together, we got more news. On Dorco's charity stream in December 2022, Scott Cawthon sent Dorco a number of cast members for the FNaF movie, and the characters that they will be playing, to be announced on stream. The cast announcement went as follows: Matthew Lillard as William Afton, whose most notable roles were previously Shaggy from Scooby-Doo and Stu from Scream. Josh Hutcherson as Mike Schmidt, known mostly for playing Peter from The Hunger Games. Mary Stuart Masterson as an unnamed villain, who previously played June in Benny and June. And Piper Rubio as Abby, known for playing Ivy in Holly and Ivy. And since Abby is here, that means the leak was correct. The leak in question first surfaced in October 2022, claiming to have exclusive information on details for characters in the film, specifically Mike, Abby, and Vanessa, as well as the filming date and location, which were not officially known at the time. The details for Mike seemed pretty much as you'd expect, a down-on-his-luck loner with a troubled past. Abby is said to be Mike's sister, whose personality basically boils down to child. And Vanessa is a police officer, as opposed to a security guard like in Security Breach, who knows about some of the secrets behind Freddy's. This leak is real. If that leak turns out to be real, I will literally drink water. This film is now closer than it's ever been to actually being made. As someone who's been around for every step of the journey, it's surreal to see actual tangible proof that this movie is going to exist, rather than just Reddit posts and interviews. But it's also incredibly exciting. I can't wait to see how it turns out, how it adapts the elements from the games, and just how scary it is. I had planned on making the rest of this video a bunch of questions and speculation about the FNaF movie, basically just a way of releasing all my pent-up hype and concern, but as I started writing my thoughts down, I realized it was literally longer than everything I had written down for the actual information part of the video. So maybe one day I'll split those thoughts into a separate video if I can find a way to make it entertaining as opposed to just me sharing my opinions that nobody cares about. I guess this might really just be a FNaF Movie channel now. The movie isn't even out, what am I doing? Big thanks to the criminally underappreciated YouTube channel FNaF Bit for being a major source for the footage used in this video. I really enjoyed researching and looking back on the timeline of this movie's progress, and hopefully you found it just as interesting. Thank you for listening. Bye bye. But since the series first entered the world, the potential for a horror... Later in July 2015, it was announced that Gil Kenan... How do you pronounce his name? Keenan? I have to look that up. Gil Kenan, pronounce name. Okay, it's telling me how to pronounce Gil, bruh. Keenan, okay. That's embarrassing, I gotta do that again. And immediately after FNaF's 8th anniversary, oh, that's such a hard sentence to say. Which means it's the title that would appear in less public places. Splaces? What the fuck do you mean by splaces? Which means it's the title that would appear in less public spaces. Spaces! Stop saying spaces! That's not what the script says, bro.